here with Senior Housing Forum, and today I'm talking to my friend Jacob Gell. Is that right?
It is correct.
Okay. So, sort of a little backstory. The first time I actually met Jacob, I don't know whether you remember or not, but we got stuck on a panel together with this terrible, terrible conference that doesn't exist. I think they tried it for 2 years, and it was absolutely the worst mess. And they said, here's your conference or panel participants. I think I was actually moderating, and the next thing I know, it was Jacob and I, and they didn't have anybody else. And so we scrambled together to find each other, to find some participants. We managed. It actually turned out pretty good, as I recall. But it was really this huge panic about 3 days before, and like I say, it was the worst organized conference I think I've ever been to, and I think they did it once or twice and never did it again, and that's probably good. Jacob is a partner. Is that the right term that you use?
Yep.
Co-founder in a company called Blueprint Advisory Services. And tell us a little bit about what you do.
So, Steve, thanks so much for making the time this morning. In 2013, myself, it was me, two partners at the time, Christopher Hildall and Ben Firestone. We had been with one of the large national firms, had sort of dreamed of doing our own thing, and we're trying to figure out sort of what would be the right vehicle and place and time to launch our platform. We had the good fortune of having gotten to know a man named Richard Lerner, who has been a friend and a mentor to me throughout my career. And as we were having dialogues with potential partners, we're trying to figure out what could we do rather than just go hang a flag out on, just put our name out on the side of a door and open up shop. We felt like if we were connected to some larger institution, it could make sense, and we could leverage an existing platform. Mr. Lerner is one of the founders and owners of a large HUD business called HHC Finance. Also, my cousin happens to be the chief investment officer of HHC Finance, so full disclosure there. Just having a conversation with those guys, it became obvious to us that we had a partner and a friend, somebody who we could help sort of draft the back office on, sort of everything from legal to IT to payroll, accounting, help us guarantee the leases and really sort of seed our initial launch. It was a big sort of shot in the arm for us, particularly on the skilled side right from the beginning. They're one of the largest skilled HUD lenders in the U.S. And we sort of immediately were able to draft off of their credibility in the market, which sort of helped us ramp up. At this point, we do a lot of assisted living as well as skilled, and we've grown the platform substantially since those days. But that was really sort of the beginning. As it stands today, we have 47 full-time blueprinters, plus we've got a handful of interns and sort of some project sort of 1099 type folks. We've got 5 offices. I'm here in Los Angeles. We have an office and headquarters remain in Chicago. We also have offices in Salem, Oregon, in Denver, Colorado, and in Baltimore, Maryland.
So I actually probably should have backed up a little bit, because there'll be people who are going to say, I still don't know what you guys do. So let's talk a little bit about exactly what you do.
Sure. So the core competency of Blueprint is sell-side advisory. So at our sort of simplest function, people who are interested in selling skilled nursing, assisted living, independent living come to our offices, and we help them, guide them through that process. We also end up doing quite a bit of matchmaking between capital and operators. We, through HHC, are able to facilitate debt. We're not a broker dealer, but we certainly do sort of play in the capital marrying opportunity game. And then we help a lot of our clients with re-tenanting facilities. A lot of our developer clients are looking for operators, so we'll structure transactions like that. We've got a few other sort of ancillary sort of exhaust revenue opportunities that sort of come from those things. But our core business is sell-side advisory. So spend a lot of time working with buyers and sellers. As of 2018, as we sit here today, we've done 1.4, I believe it's 1.45 billion in sales. 60% of that is skilled nursing. About 40% of that is assisted memory care and IL. Our client roster is something that I'm extraordinarily proud of. We have everybody from your sort of regional mom and pop kind of local operators to all the way up to the most sophisticated PE guys. We've had the pleasure to represent folks like Blackstone. And then we obviously have a large REIT business, which has been terrific. So have had a number of large mandates from Ventas and Welltower and LTC and Omega and some of the most sort of high profile publicly traded institutions in our space. But really run the gambit. We've got 16 originators. So we have a whole kind of national footprint where we deployed based on geography. So because of the size, we're able to handle kind of a wide variety of mandates from, you know, local gentleman who's looking to retire with a single asset all the way up to, you know, somebody like a Blackstone.
So, can you talk about how many transactions you've done? Ballpark, maybe?
I think our number was 100 and, I have it. Hold on. Give me 1 second to pull that, so I don't give you a wrong number. I probably should have had this up for our conversation.
Yeah, that's all right. One of the things I like about doing this is that it's sort of, you know, it's sort of more real when you don't necessarily have it all scripted out. It's one of the weirdest things to me, but people will spend thousands of dollars to do promotional videos and they're all scripted and they're so proud of them for what they've done and they're just as boring as can be. And so this actually tends to be a lot better. While you're looking, so you're still growing? You're looking to grow?
We are, yeah. We're looking at a couple of opportunities. We feel like we've got a really, really good handle on the skilled and the AL business. We're spending some time as an organization really trying to get smart on on the medical office business. And we are also looking at doing some sort of third-party asset management. We've got a couple of other initiatives that we can figure out. We think the MOB business is somewhat under-intermediated. It is actually a much larger sandbox than the seniors business in terms of the amount of medical office and hospital real estate in the U.S. And there's a significant overlap from a client roster standpoint, and we think it just makes sense. So we've spent a considerable amount of time and resources this year trying to figure out who the players are, how we can attack that business, and what would a sort of a national deployment map look like, leveraging our back office, our analysts, our sales force, and so all the resources that we've built.
So when you look at my audience, it's almost exclusively senior living folks, and it tends to be more operational people than capital people, although certainly there are some capital folks who are involved. Who of my audience should be talking to you?
Well, perfect example, just earlier in the week, had somebody in our office who had been a regional for one of the large assisted living operating companies. A woman who had a good run as a VP, as a regional, had a number of operational functions, and came to our office and said, "Hey, I'd really like to buy a building. I'm somewhat agnostic to geography. I'm looking for capital." So for us, it was kind of a sort of a two-pronged approach of saying, okay, well, here are some of the mandates that we have, here are where they're located geographically, and then let's also introduce you to capital. So we scheduled a number of meetings between that person and a few different sort of mid-tier kind of private equity type folks. So yeah, clearly people who are looking to buy or sell. And where we are in this cycle, there's still a tremendous amount of capital out there chasing deals. I would say there's a lot more capital than there even are particularly good operators. So I would certainly encourage some of your listeners or readers or people who follow your work to, if you're looking to acquire even in their first building, or looking to grow or potentially re-tenant something or change your management company, we do a lot of that. On a personal level, for me, I haven't been in the business a long time. I can tell you that helping get an operator their first building is actually rewarding. It's actually quite a bit of fun. It sort of feels good to have somebody come to our office that has been working for, somebody like Brookdale for 10 or 20 years and say, hey, I'd really like to buy something, and how should I do it? Obviously, we can negotiate the transactional side, but getting people up and running in their first building, and then watching those folks, hopefully go on and have build a successful practice. It feels good for us to play a role in that.
Cool. So I actually have somebody I'm going to talk to you about. I'm not going to do it on the interview, obviously. So when we're done with that, I'll circle back around on that. But the other question I want to ask you is, as you look at the marketplace, it feels pretty frothy right now. We've seen REITs take away some significant portfolios from one operator and give them to another operator. We've seen some big, essentially have to restructure kinds of deals. In the skilled nursing space, it's like to me, it looks like there are two different worlds. There's this world of a whole bunch of operators who are, this sounds probably a little too cynical, but they're almost like they're crying that they're one step out of bankruptcy and somebody better do something to fix them. And then there's this whole other set of operators that just, on skilled nursing side, that just seem to be killing it. And it's like they're completely different businesses. So I just love to hear your thoughts on the marketplace and what it looks like and what your thoughts are.
You're saying on the skilled side specifically, or you're saying?
Skilled, but I'm really actually interested in both the skilled side and the assisted memory care independent living side. I know in many respects they're very different, but they're also pretty tightly coupled, obviously.
Yeah, so on the skilled side, I think the deconsolidation story is really kind of carried the day in 2018. We've had a great run. Really, a lot of the folks that we sold facilities to kind of call it over 2010 to like about a year or so ago, where the REITs and some of the public guys and some of the what we call like the REOCs, like the real estate operating companies, those folks have really kind of shifted gears and have been sort of leading the disposition charge on the skilled side, seeing sort of the high net worth private client market really kind of come roaring back. And a lot of the skilled acquisitions have been driven by, kind of high net worth private families, local kind of regional people who, many of these families are extremely wealthy, but they're somewhat discreet about how they do things, and things are sort of held in family trusts. So pretty different from your sort of public company institution, where there's a lot of sort of reporting and vetting on who they are. That business has been very robust. That'll probably continue for into next year, but a lot of the public companies have been sort of cycling through some of that older stock of skilled, and the buyers have been mostly on the private client side. There's a couple of REITs that have continued to buy, and there's a few places where private equity plays in the skilled side. I would say, though, for the most part, that given the high government reimbursement, some of the other kind of sort of factors around the skilled business, a lot of the institutions tend to be more comfortable playing in a predominantly private pay business. So we tend to see less institutional equity kind of play on the skilled side. It's very much kind of the inverse in the assisted, in the ALIL memory care business. That business is, the buyers have been driven really predominantly from institutions. And a lot of the sellers have been regional folks. Some of the larger real estate operators, some of the bigger assisted living operators shedding non-core assets. Certainly our space this year has been dominated by a lot of new construction. We've got 426 facilities databased just in California as an organization. And obviously I'm out here, and you and I are out here on the West Coast, very actively tracking all of the construction.
Wait, stop. 426 new construction in California? Wow.
Yeah, out of a fleet of about 1,200 and some change, so you're looking at about a third that will grow the size of the fleet. Now, California is harder to build than other places, so part of what we've been trying to get our arms around as an organization is which of these projects are going to get off the ground, how many of these things can make it through entitlement. Obviously, in California, you've got things like coastal commissions and seismic issues, and so it's a much more challenging environment to build a building than where I sort of previously was in the Midwest. It's much, land costs are lower, much fewer barrier to entries, but there's a tremendous amount of capital trying to develop right now, arguably probably more than there needs to be. I don't know exactly how many of those 426 facilities will get off the ground, but a lot of them are under construction. But that's really sort of everything that we've been able to sort of scour the market for, trying to figure out who's doing what. A lot of those will fill and do well. Certainly, a lot of them will not. And I think there'll be opportunities on the kind of the tail end of some of those projects as they fill up, maybe not as quickly as the operators might think that they will. And certainly having Chairman Powell, the Fed chairman, continuing to tick up rates is going to increase the load, the cost of capital load on these guys, adding some other factors in like labor costs, higher construction costs from some of the tariff stuff. And I think it's going to be challenging for all these guys to really hit some of the aggressive pro formas that they're working off of. I would also say, to me, the market continues to sort of feel, on the AL side, continues to feel somewhat schizophrenic. It's kind of a term we've used a little bit. I don't know if you were able to sort of sense the investor sentiment at the NIC conference, but talking to operators, the ones that are in the market, that are on the ground, are dealing with some of those headwinds that I just talked about: staffing, competition, high labor costs, price wars with new operators, new buildings coming out of the ground, things that would sort of create a kind of something that would feel more like a headwind. But because there is so much capital, and because there's a lot of foreign capital coming into the U.S., this is viewed as a safe harbor market from other, so a lot of, on the West Coast, there's a lot of capital from Asia and other places like that. As long as these guys the senior housing investors are able to continue to reload their coffers with cash, and private equity has certainly had a huge amount of success in recent days on the fundraising side. So as long as the fundraising is able to go as well as it has been for not even just the larger, the Carlyles and the Blackstones, but really the mid-tier PE guys, as long as they're able to continue to generate all this new capital, the investor sentiment is going to continue to remain frothy, and people are going to be excited. So you're going to have this sort of duality where the existing operators are fighting and trying to feel like it's a kind of an uphill battle, but yet the tone at the NIC was, it was very bullish, and a lot of people were flush with money. A lot of folks that were coming to Nick to go shopping with big checks. Yep.
Cool. Well, listen, I appreciate that. I actually wish we could talk more. I've got a call in 2 minutes. I'm going to send you an email. I have somebody who's looking for capital, who has got some experience, and so I'll shoot that out. But this is really terrific. I appreciate it. And by the way, you threw a great party.
Yeah, it was 208 deals. Sorry about that.
208 deals. Oh, great. Perfect.
Since our announcement, we did our 5-year announcement. It was 208. I think we've closed another 6 deals since then. So just a tick over 210. So I apologize for not being quick on the
No, that's great. So Jacob, appreciate it so much. Appreciate your friendship, and have a great weekend.
All right, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You've had a lot of success. It's exciting to watch you making headway.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's really fun because I feel like we're really making a big difference in the industry, and that's ultimately, you know, I'm making a nice living, but honestly, being able to make a difference in people's lives is what really gets my juices flowing. So anyway, thanks again. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.